Well, good morning or good afternoon. I'm Daryl Ferguson, Director of Performance Management with Xtime, and we're so excited to have you today for our presentation. Um, Doug Kennedy is going to be our presenter. He's one of our managers of performance management today. Hey, Doug, you have got us on your desktop, pal. Why don't you put us over on the presentation so we can get there? We go. Always a couple of technical difficulties along the way. We apologize for that. So just to get started, again, I'm Daryl Ferguson. I manage the performance management team for all of Xtime US in Canada. And we're here today to really dive deep into how to optimize your schedule tool with how to specifically all the way down to VIN set up menus that are really going to drive a lot more transparency in your dealership. And this is a big topic. This is a big opportunity for us to be able to communicate with you some really cool new things that we've changed and added in the software that have improved just the overall workability and the speed in which you guys can make changes yourself, or you can employ obviously some folks from my team that are be more than happy to help you along the way. But before we get started, just a couple of notes of housekeeping. We've got a lot of folks on the line today. So car dealerships are loud places. So we have got everybody muted, and that's not because we don't want to hear from you. We certainly do. So in your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, you're going to see a lot of little menu bars, and one of those says questions. So at any point along the way you have a question, just drop it in the menu bar. Doug's going to be doing our presentation, and I'm going to be paying attention, really close attention to that question box, and I'll just probably rudely interrupt him a few times because we want to take your questions as close to real time as we possibly can. So we'll pause along the way to take those questions. One of the main questions we generally get when we do webinars is, how do I get a copy of this presentation? And so we've made that easy as well. So in that same menu bar, you're going to see a tab that says handouts, and it should say 1 of 5. So at any point along the way during the presentation, you can simply just open up the handouts and drag and drop that PDF, and you will have that on your computer for you to use. Now, in the event your computer is not behaving and you can't get that to happen, we certainly are happy to provide you a copy of the presentation as well as a copy of the recording of today's session, and I'll give you instructions at the end on how to get both of those. We expect the presentation to be around 35 minutes or so today, depending upon how many questions you have. And again, we're really excited to be able to spend some time with you, and we know how valuable your time is. So that being said, let's just jump right into the presentation. So again, we've got Doug Kennedy. He's one of our managers of performance management. He leads one of our teams here at Xtime. So Doug, why don't you take it away?
Thanks, Daryl. I appreciate it. Well, folks, we're going to start off with this Xtime pricing catalog. I know that it seems sometimes to be daunting, but when you get in here and work with your performance manager in this catalog, you'll see the advantages and a whole lot of opportunity that you can bring to the dealership and to your customers. So let me go over what we're going to cover today. We've got a lot to go over. I'm trying not to go deep into it too far into the woods, but we're going to try to stay out of the woods. The things we're going to cover today is driving more revenue with VIN-specific menus. We're also going to cover building trust and transparency through consistency, of having some consistent pricing that you can put in front of your customers to show that transparency. And also, we're going to go over improving customer experience with availability. That is a huge factor that will solve a lot of your headaches in your dealerships, and I'm happy to go over that. I'm really excited to go over this stuff. We got a lot of good info here. So I'm going to start and jump right into it. So we're going to jump into driving revenue with VIN-specific menus. And I know that sounds like a lot, right? Oh my God, I'm going to be in front of the screen for 6 months trying to get these right. That's not the case. I can assure you of that. Number one, you have a performance manager to help you all the way through your setups, which I'll be glad to do and lead you in the right direction. We work in this system daily, so we can help you get to your result. So the first thing I want to go over is OEM menus. So we have OEM menus, different setups. We have, if you believe in normal or severe, We have mileage. We have everything that the OEM will provide to you. So we have that set up in our system, and it's a simple turn on and then manage the settings. And once we turn it on, we can work in the system and get everything really worked out so that you're putting the correct pricing in front of your customers so that they can be assured that the pricing is going to be correct. You can be assured, and your parts manager and the whole department will be happy with the outcome, and customers will be able to really run through this. The beauty of this is we can set up multiple menus in your system. This is a screenshot of a Ford store on their web. So they are running the Works, which is the basic oil change service. They're running the Ford factory recommended, and below they have a regional recommended, which is their dealer menu, which they have designed on their own. So you can run all three. You can run just a dealer. You can just run the factory. It's really customizable, and we can help you through that. Pretty awesome tool. Great tool to do this with. So we have built into our catalog manager. We have a preview, and it's in the top right-hand side when you get there. You can copy and paste a VIN in. You can build a car, meaning you can input manually the year, make, model, trim, engine, drivetrain, everything to get to this. And then it'll show you, and you can click on the blue bars and go around. This one here is set to the 7500, and it shows exactly what the customer is going to get for their money and what services and inspections are going to be done for the factory menu. And as you move through, you can see by the blue bar indicating the 45 is a little bit more expensive. So you can see how the menu is set up from the OEM for this 17 GMC Yukon that I've picked. Also built right into this system is a great tool, if I can go the right way there, is once you get into the services that are going to be in that service, and I picked that 45K here, you can open up the oil change, the transmission service that's recommended by the factory, and it'll break everything down because of our OEM plugin. It'll give you the factory part numbers, the pricing, the correct amount of oil, the quantity and the pricing for the oil, and really go right through everything, including if you're doing a drain and fill on the transmission like you see here, it shows 6.1 quarts. It'll fill out everything for you. Now, these are customizable as well. If you were going to do a fluid exchange, you would build that into the system in lieu of the drain and fill, which the OEM recommends. So we do have a lot of customizable features built into this menu, which makes it perfect. I mean, this gets us really out of the old oil change and tire rotation, right? And to help you get out of that, of course, we set up your menus. We can get you on the right track doing that with our PMs and some menu people that we have and support to help out. We can really get that moving. But now, once we get this built, there's a couple little factors. One of them is going in and setting up some parts and fluid pricing, right? So here you'll see two instances where we have the parts pricing with the OEM pricing with their MSRP. Now, we have a couple other columns in there where we can, depending on your particular DMS, we have the ability to download your DMS file and make this pretty easy. And we also have the manual category where you can come into this, simply click in the box and manually override the MSRP price and put in your current price for the parts, and the same for your fluid pricing. And so once that's kind of the first step in getting all this correct, and this will modify and go right into the VIN specific area of the particular vehicles. So it makes it pretty automated on doing this. The next is setting up.
Doug, let me jump in. We've
Yes,
got a
sir.
question. Like I said, I was going to be rude and interrupt, but we want to make sure we get questions in real time. And for anybody that
Yeah, what
didn't
you got?
join this late, the question bar in the control panel, please put your questions in just as soon as they pop into your mind. But Eric asked, how does it integrate with Engage? So I think, you kind of jumped in and started showing us the capabilities of the menus. But why don't you talk briefly about where these menus are going to show up for us to interact with customers?
Sure, sure. Good question, Eric, by the way. So in Engage, the default after entering the mileage and hat tag number, and the very next key on the right-hand side is services. When you click on that services, the default parks the advisor and the customer directly on the packages first before they have the opportunity to go to the a la carte. And I have that in a couple slides forward where I'll show you where that is. But great question, great question. So I'll move on here with the labor pricing. The best thing out of this that I love the most is if you're a dealer that has multiple lines coming in the store and you want a different menu pricing or a different package price versus the a la carte pricing. For labor, you can do that right here. As you see, if just for instance, if you wanted to go to $115 maintenance rate on Buicks, but maintain $100 maintenance rate for your Chevrolets, you could do that right here, and it would maintain. And also, we can do that even if you have your heavy duty truck line and diesels. We can particularly run a higher package rate of labor on those, since let's face it, you're going to have a higher trained technician that you're probably paying more for doing those repairs. So keep your gross where it needs to be. So, and say you're in here and you're running this for a year and you want to do a labor rate increase, you come in, you have one place to punch it in, you hit save, and it goes to all the menus. So super easy to use, really intuitive, great system. Love it. Now, where do those menus go? This one's here. It goes to 3 different places, actually. So it's going to go and be published on your web, and we recommend always pricing on your web to get this in front of your customers. You will be very surprised when you do so that you'll find the majority of your customers will pick the package prices while they're left alone on your website. It's amazing. So they will all be published here with your a la carte below them, and based on their last menu or based on their last visit, it will estimate the mileage that they're probably at now, and it'll put that in front of them as you see the 45K here for this Yukon that I used in the instance prior to this. So it'll show up there. Now the next one is obviously for you dealerships that have Engage. The package pricing right there, as you see when you go to the shopping cart, one of the many easy ways to check in that customer once you go through this process, it'll drop you right on the same thing right there for the package, and it'll put that right in front of the customer. And as long as you have a strong check-in process, we recommend doing that in the lane while you're doing your walk around, and show the customer the screen and show them what all they get. They get to see everything as it shows here, all the check-ins and the repairs that will be done. So and you can simply add it from here, just seamless integration. And then obviously we can move to a la carte services in the middle of the screen by swiping the iPad to the right, and you can get right in there. So all that's right in the Engage tablet. So we say, great, now what? You know, what happens if I'm a schedule-only dealer? And this is the biggest thing that coincides with the appointment list that you scheduled dealers probably are getting emailed. And if you're not, please ask your PM, because it's an important data. We can send it to all the advisors. We can send it to a used car manager. they'll be able to see all the cars that are coming in for that particular day. This product is right next to that list in your schedule workbook on the lower left-hand side under menus. This will print the menus that you set up in the system that go in order with the appointment log that is coming in. So you could do this as a pre-print in the morning, have them with the advisor for the customer when they're coming in, and you can see here it shows the previous service, the current service based on the mileage of the vehicle, and the next service. So this is a great handout. As you see here, I again used the Chevrolet. You see the documentation, the Chevy logo, the vehicle, everything right in front of them. So it's a great handout to give to the customer when you're talking about that, even if you don't have the Engage tablet to do that with during the check-in. And any questions about that, Daryl?
I don't have any current questions. I do think it's a great call out. Also, one other place is in the actual setting of the appointment, right, Doug? I mean, if I've got an appointment taker, or whoever's taking the appointments in your store, as you work down the menu bars of a scheduled appointment, we can visit the packages, and we have all that information right in front of us. And because we've made so many innovations and we've made it so much easier to change labor, and I mean, there was a time, if those of you on the call have been with Xtime for a long time, you'll know there was a time that building out menus was quite tedious, and any little change took a lot of work. Now it's very, very much automated. So being able to provide, one of the things I hear from stores all the time is it's really hard to give specific pricing, at an appointment taker level. This tool makes that super easy, and it's right there. Once we've identified the VIN, we're going to be able to give them, all the way down to how many quarts of oil the car takes. So I think that's all very, very valid and important stuff. For those of you in the audience, if you joined us late, if you've got any questions, just pop them in the question bar. But right now, it looks like we're caught up, Doug, so why don't you move on?
Great. Good call out on that, Daryl. Especially if you have an off-site BDC, right? I mean, it's a great tool for that. But let's move on. Building trust and transparency through consistency. And what we mean by that is consistent VIN pricing. And so this happened recently to me at a dealership visit. We have a tendency for especially air filters and cabin filters to do some family pricing. And when we do that, we take a lower price air filter being installed and we make it gigantic. And today in society, with everybody carrying that little pocket computer with them, it literally takes 3 minutes to go and find out how much that air filter is. So a lot of times you have an opportunity to blow a customer out really with that. And we definitely don't want to do that. But even then, if you're charging labor, what is that magic number? It's going to be different every place. So I wanted to go in and I'm going to show you this for our cabin filters and air filters. As you can see here in front of you, we have the parts pricing list. We have every air filter that is in your OEM catalog that's going to end up on a menu. So we can go through and we can price those individually. And then from there, they're attached to that VIN. So they're VIN specific. So when a customer makes an appointment and says, I need an air filter, you'll be able to not only quote them correctly and then, make it seamless and have it go right in the system. We also have some new things coming out where you'll be able to transfer that if you're an inspect dealer right into your inspect straight from the catalog with the part number and the correct pricing right into the repair. So it just makes a seamless integration all the way through. Same thing with your cabin filters. And we'll be able to sort out and do a preview. If there's a car that it takes removing the glove box and a couple covers, we'll be able to point that out and show that labor. So some of them may not have labor attached to them, some of them may. and we'll be able to hold that and make sure that the profitability stays in the dealership, so we can show that to the customer of what that labor rate should be. So a lot of integrations coming with this, air filters and cabin filters, even the oil change process. If you have, and here's that preview I was talking about, if you're a store that has a bunch of different models with different engines in there with different quantities and different oil types, going into the preview, we'll be able to walk through this and pick out the ones that are 8 quarts, 9 quarts, 8.1 quarts, and what oil needs to go in those, if it's synthetic, semi-synthetic, or conventional in some cases. So we'll be able to really walk through that. And also, as you see here, I arrowed, you have a package pricing column and an a la carte pricing column. So you could have a different pricing, in fact. So if they came in and wanted that service in a la carte, it could be at a higher rate than your package pricing. It's all up to you, very customizable, very easy to work in. It looks a little daunting, but it's pretty easy to work in. Even the spark plugs, this I found very, very helpful, because we know what car at what mileage will receive the, needs the spark plugs, whether it's 100, whether it's 120, whatever that menu package may be. We know what spark plug goes in it. We know how many. We know that the OEM recommends removing the plenum on some of your V6s for that one side to get access to it. All that is built into that system. And again, we can have a package price versus an a la carte price, or we can maintain the same pricing whether it's in a menu service or not. The beauty of this is, even if you activate your menus and somebody calls in and wants an estimate and they've been in and we have their VIN on file, we can look at what an estimate would be for spark plugs. So it's VIN specific. Great tool, easy to maintain honesty and transparency to your customers, because let's face it, it's not been that case for a long time at dealerships with reputations, right? So we want to bring that honesty and transparency to that customer, and we can do that from the web, from the Engage tablet, during the appointment process. So our system really puts this in front of the customer at all times. Great tool, really should be using it. One of the little facts that we found that I thought was great, and goes back to making sure that we price out concerns when setting service appointments by customers. 55% of the customers are more likely to service a vehicle at a dealership that provides an online cost and an estimate like ours does, as long as you publish your pricing. So they can, 9 o'clock at night, go on and set an appointment with your dealership and see that transparency of what they're going to spend at your dealership. Any questions about that portion of the presentation?
Well, Doug, it looks like we've got quite a bashful crowd today. We do not have a lot of questions. They're just, maybe you're explaining everything extremely well.
Well, I hope so.
I hope so too. All right, so don't forget, if you got questions, pop them straight in the question box. And that being said, I think you've got one more section to cover with us today. I
do. This is my favorite. If any of you service directors, GMs, anybody, advisors that have worked in the lane for any type, any long-term, short-term, this section of this webinar will really help you out. The biggest thing, and we're talking about improving customer experience with availability. And our catalog does an awesome job at setting certain labor ops, and it's completely customizable by the dealer, of when certain labor ops can be set to come in, the appointment for that. And we can even move into even how many a day. It's just an awesome service that this catalog manager has. And here's what I'm talking about. So when you go into your particular, and this is a good example of a check engine light. Sorry, folks. Sorry for that. Check engine light. Coming in for a check engine light, down at the bottom where it says availability, you can see down there, when can this service be scheduled? And this one's set during any time that the service department is open. And I think you would all agree that if you're closing at 6 o'clock and you have a BDC that's maybe not in their store, or they didn't ask, and they set you an appointment at 5:30 for a waiting check engine light, it's probably going to create a little bit of a customer issue and an internal issue, maybe with a technician getting them to stay late or to handle that. So what we have here is there's a little edit button right next to it, which will pop up this subcategory here where it says service availability. You simply put a name for it. You can select the days of the week. As you see here at this particular dealership, we have it Monday through Friday. And the availability for this particular labor op is set for 7 a.m. to 3 p.m. That means during 7 to 3 is the only time that a check engine light can be scheduled for this store. In particular, Monday through Friday, so no Saturdays. So you took Saturdays out of the mix if you're a maintenance only shop on Saturday. So great tool to use.
You know,
And
Doug, I've seen a lot of it. And maybe some folks on the call today have really had to make the decision to shut appointments down altogether, mid to late afternoon, just so we don't run into a situation like this where we can't meet a customer expectation. So I would say if you're in a position like that where you've got your appointments shut down at 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the afternoon, and your shop's open till 6, this is a great way to go through, audit those services. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I mean, if somebody wants to come in at 4:30 or 5 for an oil change, I think most of us could accommodate that pretty easily. So this is a great solution to being able to open up your schedule. We've seen a lot of our larger dealer group clients around the country. They just completely opened up their schedule altogether because we now have this functionality. So we can, certain diagnoses and things like that, we can limit those. And you mentioned earlier as well, it's, a to and from. And you also mentioned that we could actually limit it by the amount too, correct, Doug?
that is correct. That's the best thing about this, and how I use these two catalog particular usage for this catalog. I use these side by side to not only control the day and time that particular labor op can be scheduled, but then the work mix for the shop. Because you can schedule this, but what happens on Wednesday if you say that's great, but you schedule a diag on the top of every hour? How many diags are you going to have in the shop? And you may not have the technicians that can cover that, right? So that's a whole nother level, and that's where I'm going to move into this next slide here, showing how we utilize that labor operation availability with skills and capacity and configure in your store. So basically, once you get the time of day and when you can accept that, we can actually limit how many of that. Even for, as you see here, we have some skills set up, and that's done in resources and skills, and that's where you set them up. When you do this and you design, say you come up with a diag, and maybe we're thinking all diagnosis, right, which would encompass check engine lights, ABS, air conditioning, transmission, or you can split that out as this dealer has right here. But you can encompass multiple labor operations that are under that diagnostic route labor op, and you can come in and create this skill capacity, and then you can control that and schedule it. And like Daryl mentioned, is if you're overwhelmed or you have, 10 technicians, but only 2 of them are trained to do diagnostic work, then you can set this so that they have the correct mix in the store, especially for those busy shops that you get a lot of recalls. You can use recalls for this. You can set up your transmission repair as you see here. You can set up multiple skills to really control the mix of what's coming in every day. And a lot of them, if you have a run on a certain extremely difficult recall, whether it's engine mechanical work that takes 8 hours to do. I have one tech that can do one of those, and you can only schedule one a day, right? And none on Saturday. So a real good way to control the shop mix. And not only are we going to control the shop mix and keep those, the biggest thing is keeping the customer's complaints down, right? Because now we can schedule for the work. So when we're overloaded, when we have too many of a certain particular request, whether it's transmission repairs or there's diags, we can really control that to give that customer experience a whole lot better view of how far out or how to get into that dealership. And especially again, if you have a BDC that's making appointments for you, this would maintain that so you don't get crushed with a certain labor up throughout the week and just covering the shop up. Great tool to use for this, and works tremendous. I mean, it's great. One of the other things to do in the system, in the catalog manager, when you go into the catalog manager and you go into your operations and you go into operations, you hit the down arrow and going into every operation, you have a scheduled duration. Now that's pretty important. Whether you're scheduling appointments or hours, and I'll dive into that a little bit. Our system has the ability to schedule just appointments, or we can schedule hours based on these durations. However, this also will help you when you have vehicles in the shop and you use the workbook as a route sheet and you do your carryovers. Why it's important to have your service durations in there is that when you move that for maybe a parts hold, whatever it may be, and you move that through the workbook, it will lower and take capacity levels out of that day that that the repair is going to be done. Even for a diagnostic repair, the advisor has the ability to manually input that duration for that repair, if it's 2 hours, 3 hours. And a good way to control the shop. Most of the time when we hear we're overwhelmed, the system's putting too many cars in, we can set up a couple little processes to help that. If you're scheduling 20 appointments a day and they are compounding, you're probably not using carryovers to help you out with that duration. So definitely get and speak with your performance manager about how to use that functionality as well. It'll just move right into this topic with keeping the customer experience pretty even keeled, right? So any questions about that?
Well, we actually do have some questions, Doug. So let me just, the next one is asked by Mac. If a customer requests a service and all of the parts for that service aren't available, does the system notify the customer in the store?
Great question. So it will not notify the customer. That will have to be an internal process that is done. Now it's easy regulated in our email, in an advanced email settings in schedule. When a customer schedules an appointment, we have a couple different options. When they schedule an appointment, you can schedule an email to go out when that appointment has a confirmation with what is requested, and we can address it at that point. The same system will do it for recalls. If the customer requests a recall, we can specifically send an email for that recall part to your parts manager and the service manager, so that we can make sure that when that customer gets here, we can either have the part, or if we're struggling with parts, we can at least call the customer and reschedule or put them on a SOP list.
Okay.
Great question.
And Terry asks, while Xtime has the capability to easily create factory maintenance menus, it does not integrate with the DMS. Dealer track DMS. Let's see. This is a long question, Terry. Let's see. Oh, you're asking about Common Ops. So Terry's asking a question about the future. So, and I'll take that one. So Terry, to address your question specifically, Doug mentioned to you earlier that we've got air filter and cabin filter capability in inspect, meaning that if we select that function, say we select a cabin filter for a specific VIN, it will automatically check parts availability. It will automatically pull specific pricing for that part number for that particular car, and will also adjust labor based upon the labor guide for that specific vehicle. That's our internal Common Ops project. And the first phase of that has been launched, and that is cabin and air filter. Those are our most two common operations of all by far. That is the first phase. The second phase, we're going to be moving in to the rest of all the maintenance, the general, I think the top 50 maintenance items. And then we're working on that project right now. The long-term goal of Common Ops, and we do see this in the very, I wouldn't say very near future, but I would say within the next year, our hopes are that we can build off of that and basically build an SPG within the tool. That's the idea. Our goal is to be able to quote out of schedule and turn that quote into an appointment or hold for a future visit. So great question, Terry. But yes, we've got the groundwork built and it works. It functions well. And I don't know, Doug, have you turned any stores on for the Common Ops for air and cabin filter?
I have. It works really great. I mean, the flow through inspect and going back into the DMS, it's seamless. It really works well.
Yeah. Next question from John. Do you recommend paid time, in tenths, or realistic time for durations? So are we going to do the clock time, or are we going to do what we're paying somebody?
Well, just my opinion, and knowing how we pay technicians, I would always recommend doing, the hours for the technician for the job. And we can adjust that as well in the menus during setup. If there's certain vehicles that require, a little bit more time, like I said, for the spark plugs, we can go ahead and plug that in and get a realistic, good, profitable menu bill.
Yeah, and I tell you what, John, that's a pretty deep question. I know it seems pretty easy to answer, but the truth is, depending upon whether or not you have a team set up. So if you've got teams set up in your store, for example, and you wanted all of your light maintenance work, say, routed to an express team, you would want to be careful with the durations. You don't want to pad those too much, because to route to an express team, we generally do that by duration. So if I select a repair that's, say, under an hour, I'm going to route that to an express team, or whatever your time is, and we can make that time whatever you want it to be. So you have to be a little bit careful padding those, because if you wouldn't want a situation where somebody selected an oil change, a cabin filter, and a wiper blades, and that ended up going to the main shop because it exceeded an hour or whatever that is. So we want to kind of dial those in. Please lean on your performance manager if you're using teams, because that can really be fine-tuned, but you also can run into some issues in routing. Doug, you want to fill in anything there?
Yeah, I mean, the routing constraints, like you mentioned, can be done by timeline, duration, so obviously service durations, but it can also be done by service type, whether it's maintenance, whether it's repairs. So a lot of different constraints that we can put in there, including vehicles. So you can also pick, out of your catalog of what vehicles. So if you don't want F250s or F350s or 2500s going to the quick lane, you can put those out and make sure they go to the main shop.
Yeah, absolutely.
So lot of capabilities in that system.
Very
So,
great.
like Daryl said, make sure you get with your PM on that.
Yeah, very granular. It looks like we got a couple more questions. I have a ton of factory labor opcodes such as dealer OCM and do not send. Is there a way to delete these opcodes? They seem to clutter up my opcode list.
Yeah, there sure is. So depending on your DMS, we can move some of those to, especially for the maintenance and mileage based, we can move those to one common labor op.
So we can definitely clean that up. Paul, reach out to your performance manager. If you don't know who your performance manager is, we're going to give you some information in a minute to track them down. It looks like I've got one last question. It's a follow up from John. Right, but I've seen customer facing time that might say 18 minutes because the job only pays 3/10. So and it's really,
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that customer facing, when in your scheduled duration, these are not going to be published on the repair order for technician pay. So if you're coming in for an oil change and a tire rotation and you're paying 6/10 or 8/10, whatever you're paying, it does not have to reflect that for the scheduled duration. It does not have to reflect that because that information, when it goes into the RO, the scheduled duration is going to be different, right? However, we can use that scheduled duration, and a lot of times how we do that is by not going down a rabbit hole very quick, but what we do is we can say an oil change takes 20 minutes, wipers take 10 minutes, a rotation takes 20 minutes, and then we'll set a constraint up in the teams to route that to your quick lane, and we'll set that up so it's under 60 minutes. So they get maintenance under 60 minutes, so that when those add up, it will automatically move those to your express lane instead of moving them into your main shop into your repair.
Right, so that duration it doesn't have anything to do with flag time on the ticket or the RO. It's really just for scheduling purposes. All right, well, it looks like we've wrapped up all the questions. Doug, if you advance to the next slide. We want to be respectful of everybody's time. We've had some great questions today, great content, Doug. I think that's really amazing, some of the things that we can do. So if you haven't visited that in a while, please reach out to your performance manager. Of course, Doug's information is on the screen. My information is on the screen. I'm always available for any help. I mentioned to you earlier, you can click on the handout section if you'd like a copy of the PowerPoint presentation. It's directly in the control panel of the GoToWebinar. Also, one other note, about an hour and 43 minutes ago, you should have received an email that was reminding you of today's webinar, and that came from me, Daryl Ferguson. If you have any questions, if you need a copy of the PowerPoint because your computer is acting up and won't do the download, or you'd like a recording of today's session, just reply back to that email and let me I'll be happy to get that to you. I'll send it to you this afternoon. The recording will be available in about an hour, and I've got the PowerPoint right now. So if you would like those, please ask for them. And the last thing is, look, we mentioned Performance Manager a lot in today's conversation. We are here to help you and assist you to get the most out of the software. So anything you need, if you don't have a relationship or you're not having regular calls or interactions with your Performance Manager, lean on us. That's what we're here to do. Our mission in life is just to make sure that you're getting the most out of the software that you possibly can. We're all about making more money and having happier customers. So that's what we live for, right, Doug?
Absolutely. Make sure you lean on them hard.
Well, great work today, Doug. We appreciate the presentation and your insight. And as always, we appreciate everybody on the call today, and thank you for your business. We appreciate that very much. And that being said, I think we're going to wrap up the webinar. We hope everybody has a great day.
Have a great one, everyone.